Ready?
Yeah, if you want
Okay,
to.
we're gonna take a roll call.
Levon, Joe,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
Jacob, and Tom.
Okay, first period for public comment.
Yeah.
Gregory?
Well, yeah, you'd be. Nope, nothing at all.
I know, I was
Nothing?
late too, I was late.
Okay.
Yep.
We have approval of the last meeting minutes.
Sorry, what then?
Approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
I
I
can
wrote it,
second.
so.
Yeah, I can second.
Okay.
Okay, payment of bills.
Oh, you gotta take a vote on it. You gotta call for a vote on the minutes.
Oh.
Well, you got a first and second, you need to actually vote on it.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Payment of the bills.
I don't have, I know that it's coming. Our lawn service has been there twice. I just haven't gotten the bill, once in October. And I think he probably did it the last time here, in the last 2 weeks. We'll see what happens. All the utilities have been disconnected, water, gas, and Xcel Energy, and got a couple of small polite refunds from 2 of them. So I don't think there's going to be any more utility bills. So other than the lawn care, the only other question I had, excuse me, was with respect to if you had any disposition, Nate, on that June billing from Viroqua that showed up on the last invoice. I've got a copy of it here, and we were gonna double check with them on.
Yeah, I can't say that I can recall offhand, and if it was sent to me, I don't think I followed with her at that point. So you'll have to give me
Yep.
another month to look at that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can you give me the invoice number on
It is project 230-148, and it would be our first invoice, so it's 00001.
that? Okay.
And that, I don't recall seeing it, but
Oh, yeah.
she resent it to me. I didn't pick it up until I got a subsequent Viroqua installment bill, and I thought, we're late on a bill?
Yeah,
And so I was trying to figure out, so.
Yeah, I'll double check that when I drop that one, but I'll follow with their billing office. They're pretty quick about turning questions around.
Okay, so, I guess with that narrative, I don't have any actual bills to present at this meeting. I did give TLC Lawn Care an opportunity to get it to me for today's meeting, but I haven't heard from them, so. They will, they'll find me, so.
Okay. So discussion about the action for the Hanson Farm?
Sure, so at the last meeting, we had suggested that Kurt and the team at Viroqua consider some changes to the master plan. I made contact with Kurt thereafter, let him know what those changes were, and he submitted to me the next draft of the concept plan. Just yesterday, I think Sarah had maybe a brief moment to look at it. Sarah Granger from our Public Works Department's here in case there's any questions about changes to infrastructure, additional infrastructure, whatever it may be. But Kurt's online. Kurt, you have control of the wheel, so if you'd like to, I can, I'm not sharing screen currently, but if you'd like to share a screen and walk through the new version of the concept plan for the VDA, that would be wonderful.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Can you see that?
I can, Kurt, but I'm just moving it to the big screen. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Does everybody have a copy of the map that can see it?
Yep, it's on the screen now, Kurt. You're good.
Okay, awesome. Well, we circled back, and as Nate said, about another concept plan, taking input from a number of sources from the BDA meetings, Plan Commission, Common Council, and the new concept is significantly different than the old. Just to touch on some very general things. First of all, just as a reminder, these concept plans are simply a tool to help illustrate to potential developers what the city's vision might be for this property. You know, the chance that it actually gets developed exactly like this is unlikely, but it's kind of illustrates the approach. The new east-west public street connecting to Main Street at the Walmart intersection is on there with a signaled intersection. We are showing also the greenway, that the existing drainage way that goes through the property, and how we're routing that through the development down to the southwest portion of the property. The other thing that we are illustrating is preserving the farmstead, the barn and silos, and trying to develop kind of a farmstead style commercial property there. The other thing is just behind that, in the center of the development, we've incorporated kind of a neighborhood park. And another big change from before is we are showing a wide variety of housing choices, from duplexes on the west end that could be either owner occupied or rental occupied, to row houses, to conventional multifamily, and that was something that was also discussed. The other thing is, we look at this 22-acre parcel. It's unlikely that, especially with this variety of housing types, that a single developer is going to take this on. So it's important that as we break this thing down, all of the various portions of the development, individual separate parcels, could be created that access public streets, which is a requirement. And so this approach does include a new east-west street, public street off of Chicago to the duplexes, and then at the park it turns north and goes to the new east-west street. So there is a public street going through there, and then that street plus the perimeter streets allow this 22-acre parcel to be divided into numerous different parcels, which could be available to different developers. And I think it's a quicker build-out doing it that way, and you're going to probably find local developers more apt to take on parts of the project and so forth. Starting out on the highway, the last concept plans had 3 commercial properties fronting Main Street. We now have 4. The parcel immediately north of Culver's is pretty much the same as before. It's a conventional highway commercial. Just north of that is the farmstead commercial property, which would gain access to Main Street through a shared drive and have its own on-site parking. We're showing the barn and silos being preserved, and 3 commercial buildings perhaps on that that development, which would be, you know, designed to consistent with the farmstead theme, and have large open areas that could be used as multifunctional pedestrian areas, open markets, food carts, so forth. On the lower, the west and southwest area, below the barn, that traditionally was the barnyard, and so that would create a pretty cool outdoor venue, which you could call the barnyard. That could tie into the barn itself, you know, for live music and so forth. So it, your imagination, you know, can really run with this and create a pretty special place. North of that, then there's 2 commercial properties that would be accessed off of the new roadway on internal streets. And this layout kind of works with the lay of the land a little bit. It would require less excavation and fill and so forth. Just west of the farmstead is the public park. You can see we have kind of a connecting pedestrian walkway there that crosses that roadway, and you know, for safety, you could use like a raised pelican type of crossing. And so it really, that neighborhood park area can tie together nicely with the farmstead. Then the rest of the development is residential, and just starting on the west end, we're showing 12 duplexes. You can see there's individual lots. They could, all 24 units could be rentals. All 24 units could be owner occupied using zero lot line, or they could be a combination thereof. It provides a lot of flexibility, much lower density than the previous layouts. Between the public park and those duplexes, there's a row of row houses in there, 10 units north of the public road, 12 units south of the public road. Those are multi-layer. Again, the north ones being adjacent to the public road could be owner-occupied units. Those south ones, because they're not individually on a public street, would be rentals. And then south of the park, we're showing two higher density multifamily apartments with garages on each end. And then east of those 12 unit, behind Culver's, we're showing another row of row houses. And that particular area right there has a significant grade change from Culver's parking lot down to like the fronts of those buildings is a 12-foot drop. And so that lends itself really nice for row houses where the driveways, garages would be on the lower level, and then the level above that is the primary living quarters, and it would be kind of at grade on the backside, and then you could have a third floor or a loft in them and so forth. So that kind of really fits in there nicely. And then north of the public park is, again, just a blend to illustrate some other different types of housing, fourplex rentals and some more row houses. The previous concept plans had a total of 3 commercial lots. This has 4. The other ones had 208 residential units, which was really intended to illustrate the maximum density you could get on this. This layout has only 98 units, but in looking at the assessed value, it's not that much different, because duplexes and row houses have a lot higher value per unit than high density residential, and we're getting more commercial development. And so I haven't looked at that in a lot of detail, but the assessed value of this option is probably not a lot lower than what the highest density version was. So that's kind of a quick overview. Be happy to answer any questions.
Kurt, I have a question. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with row house. What's the definition of a row house?
A row house is typically multi-story, 2 or 3 story, narrow units that have common walls. And they can be owner-occupied units, or they can be rental units. And yeah, so sometimes I've heard them referred to as townhouse apartments, you know.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
But they're fairly narrow. They have a small footprint per unit, but then they're multiple stories.
Multiple stories for one
Yes,
occupancy?
that's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, each of those little rectangles, and there's a lot of different designs, but, let's say, you have a one-car garage on the lower level, and then on the back end of it, you've got a multi-use room. It could be a storage, mechanical, could be another bedroom, and then you go up a floor, and you've got your primary living area, kitchen, dining, living room, and bedroom, bathroom, and then you can do a third story or a loft, either way, to create another bedroom or more living space.
thank you.
Sven, can you do me a favor?
Yeah, what do you need?
Typically, the
Base-
design of
base
those
down.
is they try
Your
to,
microphone goes in?
architecturally, each unit might look a little bit different than the adjacent one. It's not just a flat wall, you know, with, looking like one big building. There's some really cool designs. I like it when they kind of make each unit a little different than its neighbor. Obviously, all compatible and tied together, but it creates some really nice character in the neighborhood.
Anybody else, DDA? Input, feedback, initial reactions?
I like it.
Kurt, where's the, I'm familiar like with 4 units. Years ago when my folks were living, they were in a 4-unit that had 2 lower roofed single car garage centered by 2 larger units with a double car garage. They were all common walled. Those were owned homes. It seemed efficient. Where's the closest example of like a row house type setup? Are we talking Reedsburg, Madison?
Like cross
Yeah, we've got a development going in right now in Reedsburg that's got a 9-row house. I could send you the floor plan and building elevations. I love the floor plans. I'm not crazy about the building elevation, but I could send you that as an example. And I can get you some others. That's just one that is being built right now. These 12-unit apartments, I can also send, these are, each unit has its own garage, 2-story, 6 units on it, and I could send you an example what they look like. And these duplexes, I mean, there's any number of, and Joe is building duplexes, you know, they can be, these lots are big enough, you can have a variety of designs there.
Okay, thank you.
The question on the duplex, I like the idea that individual local builders can get involved. And so how would you just survey out a lot and they buy a lot? I mean, like what?
Yeah, good question. Typically, a duplex lot is gonna be a little bit wider than a single family. They, you know, ideally are at least, in the neighborhood of 100 feet wide. If you want them to be owner occupied, then you would, divide that 100-foot, wide lot again and make 2 50-foot lots, and the common wall is built right on that property line. And so then, and I don't remember if your zoning ordinance has that 0 lot line provision, but you can sell each unit then, and without having to do a condominium, which is really clunky. This is a lot more straightforward. And, you know, we have some developments where they're restricted that they have to be, they can only be owner occupied. We have a development going in where it can be a blend. We found a number of empty nesters or retired folks that would like to buy a duplex, live in one unit and rent the other unit, or they can be strictly rentals. And so this layout can go in a lot of different directions. But you're right, local builders could buy individual lots and build on them. And so talking about that just a little bit, so here in theory, the duplexes, you could have 12 different lots that you sell individually. South of the park, the only access to all of this land, like from Culver's over to the stormwater and south of the park, that the way this layout is laid out, that would have to be sold as one parcel. So the row houses, the 12-unit apartments and so forth would be a single parcel, a single developer, unless you wanted to add more public street. The area north of the park, where those 4-unit buildings are and those row houses, that could be a separate parcel. The row houses just adjacent to the drainage ditch, that could be a separate parcel. So there's quite a few opportunities to break this down into bite-sized pieces and get multiple developers involved. And then all of the commercial properties front on public street, but they all kind of have shared access. Like the Farmstead gets access through the south commercial lot off Main Street. But then on the north end there, we actually have a lot more parking there than what technically would be required, but we envision perhaps having this Farmstead property in the park. There may be opportunities for bigger events with more people. And so this parking lot between the commercial buildings and the Farmstead, that long narrow one, that could be a shared parking lot. It could be a city public parking lot that's used for people that come to the park that don't live in the neighborhood, or people that come to an event. So it's kind of provides that extra parking flexibility.
Hey Kurt,
Yep.
this is Spanky. Say, not to beat those row houses to death, but those row houses, so am I picturing like, each one's a different color, they have, some of them jut out, some of them are in,
Yeah.
that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, all of the above. The ones just north of the park, we're showing them kind of
I saw that.
staggered.
So are them
The
pocket
rest of these,
houses or
just
what are
for simplicity, we're just showing rectangles.
they? That's fine,
But,
that's fine.
yeah, you can just Google row houses and
Yeah, I know what
townhouses.
this is.
And I can send you some photographs of some properties.
Yeah,
And
but that's not what they
I personally like the ones where each unit look a little different. It's not a flat wall. There may be, shifted front, a little bit from one unit and a different color scheme and so forth. Exactly. And that's really where architectural design comes in and so forth. And this is simply, intended to illustrate how that type of housing could fit in there. And each one of them would have a garage off the back side. This is a private drive. And then there's surface parking for if somebody's got an extra vehicle or visitors come, and all of these have that kind of arrangement. And then off the other side, they have connection to a sidewalk. So if somebody lives in one of these units, their driveway access is off the back, but they can come out the front door and go over to the park or whatever. Or people parking on the street. If somebody wants, Spanky, if you live in this unit, and you're gonna play cards with the guys, they can park along the street right here and come in your front door.
Yep. We like that. So Kurt, now what was my question? I had a really important question, I lost it. Oh, do you have developers that are looking for stuff like this?
Yeah, the conventional multifamily, these 12 units, there's a lot of developers looking for that. Duplexes, quite frankly, they're about the hottest thing going right now. It seems like we can't build them fast enough. And that can be any home builder, you know. But row houses are a little bit more non-traditional. And I think but there would be developers, you know, that would be interested in that. And all of these don't have to be row houses either, you know, you could change some of these row houses into some other type of multifamily, you know, these could be 4-unit apartment buildings, okay? 2-story, something like that. You know, so there's that kind of flexibility in the ultimate design, and that's where, when you start talking to developers, some developers bring a lot of flexibility. There's other developers that they have a product and they're not real flexible. They build what they build and don't build other things. So, you know, the process will kind of sort out what we end up with,
But we have to put this infrastructure in, and we have to have this plan, and they have to follow this plan, right?
yeah, I mean, right now these are lines on paper, but once these public streets are platted and like these duplex lots are platted, then that defines that part of the development, you know? And then you gotta work around that, and if that neighborhood park becomes platted, you know, so, it's kind of a process, and, but when you start doing real, subdividing and dedication of public streets, then you're really locking in the layout.
Yep.
But until then, these are just lines on paper. Somebody comes along and comes up with a really good idea that is different than this. At this point, you got all the flexibility in the world. Again, this is just, another approach to development.
So what's easy to,
The conclusion is, well, this is just too many row houses. Let's change out some of these to multifamily. That can be done.
so you're saying you might make a few phone calls and we might end up with a developer that wants those 12 units, but he doesn't want to do the row houses or something.
Yeah, the challenge with it, yeah, that's right. The duplexes and the 12 units are the easiest ones to bring it, you know, find a developer for. The row houses, just because they're not quite as traditional or typical in rural areas, you know, in an urban setting.
Normally, are those built and just rented out, or are they built and sold?
Both. The ones that are going up in Reedburg are rentals, and it's actually not too far from the industrial park, and the developer is targeting workforce and working the industrial park, and they can walk to work. And they're targeting really affordable rents. You know, in the urban areas, you know, in Dane County, there's a lot of townhouse apartments, a ton of them. There's streets full of them down there, you know, that are rentals, but then there are also a lot of condominium developments and owner-occupied developments. So it can, again, they can go either way. Everything south of the park, though, as I mentioned, the only access to the public street is right here. And so this, under this layout, that whole zone, this all has to sell as a single parcel. Unless we tweak something, you know, we could bring up this public street to the south a little bit, and then you could separate them off. But you know, those are the normal tweaks that you make as you go through a process.
Kurt, can you remind me again, what are those gray portions coming off the 12 units?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Garage.
Are those all garages? So that far south unit, 12 unit building, yeah, what is that section there?
Them are garages. Each end of the building has 6 garages, even though there's 5 driveways around here.
Oh.
Every time I look at this thing, I find stuff.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, and I can send you photographs of those. They're really pretty nice. what we found in recent years, multifamily with just surface parking is tough to rent. Everybody wants garages. And so this happens to be a layout where they have 6 garages on each end, and then 6 units, 2 floors of 6 units.
And then
I
Kurt.
kind of like that design. The building has a lot of character. It's not just a box, you know?
Sure.
And then we've got surface parking between them for visitors and to meet the code. You know, you need 1.5 stalls, parking stalls per unit. So for 24 units, you need 40, whatever. And so the combination of garages and the surface parking then would meet the parking requirements for those 2 12-unit buildings.
One of the things I noticed, and this would be important, I think, for the VDA, especially if we're talking about phasing out this project, is that what I noticed is on the Highway 14, we've gone from having 3 or 4 commercial buildings available to be accessed off of a single shared road to 1, and then a smaller one that's in front of the barn, and then the other 2 commercial units that are on the north there appear not to be able to be accessed until that new roadway is put in. Is that correct, Kurt?
Yeah, that's correct. And, you know, you could connect it through there, then this lot at the intersection would require a lot of fill. And I guess this approach allows this to be at a lower level, and it kind of ties the backside of the farmstead and potential buildings on that parcel to the access and the parking down here. You're not fighting grades as much, but
Can you zoom in on that section,
if
Kurt?
everybody wanted to have all 3 highway frontage lots, you know, that could be done as well.
Kurt, can you zoom in on that commercial section for me, please?
I'm sorry, could you speak up a little?
Yeah, can you zoom in on that commercial section, please?
Is that big enough?
A little bit more for me, if you could. Well, I couldn't even read. So, sorry, I mistook those. So there's actually on that shared lot, there's 5 different commercial units that, or at least 4 commercial units that are dependent.
Yeah. This would be a lot right here.
Mhm.
This would be a lot right here. Then the farmstead lot, and then this other commercial lot.
Okay.
And so, this lot would have to have a shared access, you know, through some other avenue to get to it, but it's got great highway exposure, okay? Now, as I had indicated before, this parking lot probably is more parking that's needed for just each individual parcel, but again, it's provides some, quote, public parking available, you know, for larger events in the neighborhood. And the exact details of this can be worked out. We're showing 3 new commercial buildings on the farmstead. And there, I was just envisioning from the conversations, you know, there could be an anchor commercial building along the highway, and then a couple of other smaller ones with shops. All of the buildings would have a design theme that's consistent with the farmstead, the agricultural, you know, type of building design, like a granary or a tobacco barn or a woodshed or chicken coop, you know, I mean, just whatever your imagination wants. But you could create a really nice theme there. And these units down here would really have access off of this north area. These could be smaller shops. And this is also shown as a 4-unit building where smaller shops could rent space. The ones along the highway are more larger commercial. So again, the attempt here was to try to look at some flexibility and different ways of looking at this instead of just conventional highway frontage, and kind of tie this all together to build off of the conversations about creating a sense of place and preserving the farmstead and that type of thing. The other thing I forgot to mention, which I think is kind of cool, is this new public street coming off of Chicago is purposely lined up to look through the park right at the barn. So when you enter the development off of Chicago, you're seeing that farmstead, and it kind of helps integrate that theme, into the neighborhood.
Thanks, Kurt. We are about halfway through the meeting. We're at 45 minutes already here.
Yep.
Just a reminder for the VDA, our goal here is to eventually get to a point where we have a concept plan that, while it is lines on paper, it does in some way articulate a vision. The next steps would be to refer it on to council for their review and feedback. So at this point, I guess I would ask the VDA, is there any recommendations for changes? And if not, that's okay. If you feel like, hey, I want to think on this a little bit more and formulate some more questions, that's okay. We would just table it for now and come back at the next meeting and give Kurt more input. Or you could even go so far as to say, yeah, we really like this, let's recommend it to council and let them offer some feedback on it. Anywhere in between those three options is also okay.
What do you think of it, John? It's kind of a hybrid of what,
I think you want
it's kind of a hybrid of what we had and what Gregory put out there, and
But, I do appreciate it not being as dense as it was if we ended up in the same tax assessed value standpoint. The flow is much better, from that standpoint. It looks very usable.
so from a tax point, we're similar to what we were, it sounds like Kurt said.
Yeah.
And we were able to keep, I like that park space in the center.
The devil's in the detail there, like the row houses, for example, what market are you targeting? That's definitely, a majority of this housing has a higher assessed value per residential unit than the other plan. There's no question about that. And we got more commercial. It could be close to the other option, but the other option may not have been acceptable. It might have been, well, that's just too much density. And so, I haven't run the numbers, but I think that we can be okay with the assessed value.
Sarah, we had our public works director look at it. Sarah, did you have any comments on the changes, infrastructure or otherwise, that you wanted to make the VDA aware of based on Kurt's and Bierbecker's updated plan?
No, I did get to speak with Kurt yesterday about just making that interior public road a thoroughfare rather than two dead ends, so we made that change. I appreciate any of the access points for the commercial not necessarily coming off of 14. I know from a business perspective that might be different, but from traffic, I think it makes for a calmer and more aligned entry and exit onto the highway. That's about it.
Sarah, what do you think? What do you think about like that southern one where the large commercial space just north of Culver's, there's only one way onto that. And I know this can be changed a million times. But if you were driving by and you saw something, you pulled in up there on the new road, you could not get back down to that spot.
Sure.
But that's okay, Kurt, right?
Yeah, we had a plan where this frontage road extended along 14 and connected to this roadway.
Yeah.
And push this commercial building back a little bit. And I actually asked them to take that out of there, but you make a